Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're playing Unlimited and we're playing Elana Haven. Why? Because Elana Haven is a fun deck, at least in my opinion. I enjoy Elana Haven because it does take the healing of Tenko and it just throws it to 11. I love seeing big followers get hit to the board quite hard, and in Unlimited it's reasonably fair because there is plenty of hardcore removal and plenty of big removal that can deal with this sort of thing. So honestly, I like this kind of matchup where it's going to come down more to your draws and more to your match than anything else, which is quite interesting. So let's check it out and get right into the video. So our Almighty Haven deck, first opponent is Shadow. In general, Shadow tends to be less favoured than Haven in this matchup, just out of necessity of what kind of cards they have in their deck. I mean, Haven usually techs pretty hard against this kind of thing and really isn't a major issue in most situations. So we also start off with a pretty good hand. I mean, the Globe into Elana Prayer into Tenko is pretty much perfect, especially if we can top deck Black Inscription as well, which is a great way to go into the early game here. You can easily remove anything that Shadow can drop going in, so it really works out nice. Plus, the draw on the Beast Call lines up great. It's a pity we don't have more cards like Beast Call in our current rotation meta, but I understand why, because Beast Call was just a staple card in every single Haven deck and really become quite a problem long run. So, not too shabby, but the Elana's Prayer gets dropped, which is great on 3. I mean, why would you not play Elana's Prayer on 3? That's the only good way to play it. Stop! Hit him hard in the early game. Of course, we do want to be able to remove that 3-1. I'd rather deal with that than deal with the 1-2 at the moment, especially since the 1-2 can only hit face, and is requiring another card to trigger it, so it's not too bad at all. I did throw this 3-2 out because I am hoping that I can get even just a little bit of damage out of it, especially if I can play the Tenko next turn. Not so lucky though, Undying Resentment does clear it out pretty quickly. No! So our opponent really is just going for board pressure at this point with threatening to clear my stuff, which I have no real concern about. I mean, if they do happen to clear 2 or 3 things here, I restack the board with something like Aether and I start again. Especially since we do have Snow White and Rabbit Healer, so unfortunately Tenko didn't survive, but if it had of, we would have had a really nice setup next turn as well. And they do go for their massive amount of draw power, but it does look like they're not going to easily remove this 5-5, which is pretty important for them. They really wanted to be able to remove that immediately to have really any kind of structure on this board. And we get our Decree, which is going to work amazingly in the long run. I do end up holding onto these evolves fairly well, so it means I can get some good value out of this one here and pump an extra 2 damage into it while at the same time buffing everything around it. The only downside is it does make it susceptible to Soul Squasher, so that is something to always keep in mind. That Soul Squasher will kill a lot of your evolve stuff, so sometimes in the Shadow matchup you don't want to be evolving Tenko, because Tenko is going to be the more important card to keep a hold of. And with their current 5-5 trading, I mean, that's pretty good for us. And luckily it kills the 2-1 and not the 1-2, of course, so of course buffing that to a 7-5 isn't really an issue, and our top deck of Tenko really allows us to swing this game in our favour for an actual really solid lethal. I mean, Rabbit Healer is going to buff, Tenko is then going to double buff, plus the Evolve is going to be a +2, so overall we had 10 damage for that turn. So as you saw, this deck can go quite well. Of course, if you do brick a little bit, it can be a lot harder to come back from, which is to be expected in this kind of deck. If you don't get Elana in a reasonable fashion, you are going to have a hard time. Although, there are ways that you can trigger Elana more regularly. I think trying to get something like Yurd, maybe. I think is it Yurd or Uriel? I can't remember. Anyway, one of the gold drops actually allows you to pull an amulet, or I think that's the only way you can pull it, because the other amulet puller I think only pulls Countdown, so definitely a fun way to go. Featherfall Hourglass is actually an amazing card. A 1-drop amulet that procs on 3 can curve out really well with Elena's Prayer, so that you can get some really nice boosts, and just playing it on 3 for a rush works really nicely if you already have Tenko and Elana on board anyway. And of course, Globe pulling a Beast Call, that's probably one of the better cards to pull, although a 1-drop would have been nice as well. Stop! This is my home. And again, we're in a situation where we are going to be able to play Elana on 3, which, as you see, is pretty much the best way to play it. We do have Triple Priest to the Cudgel though, so we're not lacking any kind of removal in this game. should be very interesting, especially since they have gone double spiderweb him. Means I can only remove 2 of these with this turn. Kind of disappointing. But we can deal some real damage to one of them.
Your evil deeds end now.
Plus, we also have our Tenko and our Rabbit Healer, so we've got some options going into turn 5. We also have the double Priests, which again will help us remove stuff from their board, making it a little bit easier to take. And turning that into a 1-1 was much better than leaving it at full health. I mean, overall, that was going to be more favoured to me.
Go! Go!
Because it does allow my next Priest to clear that immediately. Or we can actually just Priest these 2 now, which will actually only deal a little bit of damage to Priest on his own. I think that works out even just a little bit nicer. And we just drew all our good healing followers, so looks like we've actually got some substantial cards to go with this turn.
I see your weakness.
So we get to remove it. Pretty good. I mean, you can't really go wrong removing a couple of cards. And leaving a good 4/4 body up. Snelling Chains though, kinda hurting me a little bit. Especially with Vampiric Kiss, sorry. It does boost them right up to full health nearly, but normally our turns are going to be quite heavy, so...
Look at you.
So Rabbit Healer into Rabbit Healer is a pretty good option. It gives us a double buff on at least one of these Rabbit Healers and a single buff on another, so that's pretty good. And we can set up next turn for a Tenko, which could work out really nicely, which the opponent does just pass, which I find quite odd. I don't know whether at this point they just didn't have a good turn 7 option, or whether they just kind of gave up at this point, but it really shows off that this deck does things quite well. Even if they had have cleared this, it would have still been quite good. See, so obviously I think, yeah, at this point my opponent just has no way to deal with these, and they've given up. I mean, the best option for them still wouldn't have been great, because next turn we would have absolutely swamped them with that Beast Call anyway, so it's a little unfortunate the opponent kind of just gave up at the end, but that just tends to be how some of these games go. And lastly, Haven versus Haven. So these matches are a little more interesting, just because there are a few variations of Haven around, and it really keeps you on your toes when you're throwing out one like this.
Peace be yours.
So Globe of the Stairways is a really good card. I always try and keep that in my opener. Holy Water, not quite as great. Black and Script Sharp, perfect. Usually what I aim for. So we get a pretty solid turn 1. I mean, playing those out is great. Turn 2 into Beast Call or Black and Script Sharp both work out well as well.
Crystals of snow shimmer in the night.
So Featherfall Hourglass as well is going to be quite good. I can take advantage of that either next turn or the turn after, and I have the Black Inscription to deal with Snow White in a more effective way than just throwing out nothing, so I really like the Snow White into either Globe or Feather. It's always a great way to go. Globe obviously being the one I prioritize a little bit more, so that I can pull some of these amulets from my deck. Especially since we have got our other Globe proccing next turn anyway, so why not? And a 3-2, which is also susceptible to another Black Inscription. Always works out quite nicely, and we get our Elena's Prayer, which I'm going to prioritize and throw out now, while at the same time being able to throw an Hourglass to the board. So, not the best setup on my turn, only because Beast Claw is proccing next turn anyway, and that's going to fill our board a little bit. And they did go for the Evolve on this, which makes my turn just slightly less.
Stop!
You're done
So the trade is the Holy Flame Tiger is pretty good. I mean, we get to trade into it, deal a little bit of damage. The main thing was that I know this amulet's going to be a pain in the ass anyway, so leaving it there is fine.
Crystals of snow shimmer in the night.
And what we've got next turn should be a little more substantial. Especially since we have another Black Inscription we can use if we want to. So some more interesting cards. We decided to throw another Beast Call, and I do use the Holy Water only because I want to get the draw power off it. While I could have saved it and used it as a good heal buff, I think because we have enough healing with both Tenko and Rabbit Healer, I was mainly focused on getting that draw there, so that I could try and get something else to use. And we finally get a chance to use our Tenko along with Rabbit Healer for a nice turn 7 play. buffing us up just a little bit. Even though we can't take advantage of Tenko here, it does set up a nice precedent for the board. Now things get super interesting, because at this point we have a triple buff set up here, which is going to be absolutely massive, plus 2 points for the evolve, so more than enough to take this lethal
The
here.
real battle begins.
Which clearly the opponent either just didn't realise or they had no choice but to go into Seraph.
I envy you.
Which either way worked in our favour, so can't really complain there. So I hope you guys did enjoy this video. This deck is pretty fun and I'm sure it has some room to improve, as after all I'd probably build it slightly differently for my own full variant of Haven. This was pulled straight from Twitter after all, so not too bad though. It's definitely a fun one, and if you want to give it a go, as always, decklist will be in the description below so you can check that out. Please be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content, and I will catch you guys next time. See ya.